today with Art Nolte, a member of the Arizona Drag Racing Legends. He's part of the Arizona Drag Racing Hall of Fame. Art's a longtime legend in drag racing, boat racing in Arizona. He's been a leader in a lot of technologies in turbocharging and a lot of other things along the way. But he's here today because he's one of the good guys, and we want to hear his stories and his memories of Arizona. So, welcome.
Right.
How long have you been in Arizona?
My family moved here in 1949.
Okay, and were you still in school, or did you finish?
Oh, I was at great school. Yeah.
Okay, I hope I kind of thought that, didn't you? So, what part of town did you grow up in?
Scottsdale.
Scottsdale. Okay. You went to grade school. When did your interest in cars start?
Well, when I was in high school, and then when I came home I was in the Army in Germany, and when I came home from Europe in '65, I was working at Courtesy Chevrolet, and I built a C-Gas 57 Chevy.
So you had a door slammer.
Yeah, I started with a door slammer, and then once I got to look at a dragster, I said, boy, I figured out right away, race cars don't have doors. You know?
Well, many people would argue with you, but the group here today, I think will,
And so my first car was an Econorail, a 4-barrel front-motor small block Chevy with the LaSalle 2-speed manual transmission. We didn't have good transmissions back then, and then later on I had a torque flight, and we cut the bell housing off and put a clutch in front of it. And
what engine was in the dragster?
a small block Chevy.
Small block.
Yeah.
Did you? Where did you find the car? How the car did you come across?
I bought it off of Ron Sutherland. It was one of Ron's friends, and it was a front-motor top fuel car. And we converted it over and put a Chevy in it. And then after that, we discovered turbocharging.
That whole turbocharging thing is quite fantastic. We started off running the Econo Dragster class, and then
We had put a rear engine car together, and we had an injected small block in it, and we raced that. We even raced it down in Hermosillo.
Who drove that car?
I drove it.
In Hermosillo.
And then later on, we discovered turbocharging, and I drove it for a little bit, and we couldn't make the car. We couldn't win any rounds with it, and we just couldn't make it run good. So Steve Hogue and I were buddies from high school, and we put him in the seat, and I got out of the car, and I could see what was going on, and we started doing better then, you know. And I know when we had an engine on the dyno, we had a small block Chevy, a 302-inch iron Chevrolet. That motor was out of a Z28 Camaro, 2-bolt main motor. And we had it on the dyno with 2 turbochargers, and it made 1,100 horsepower with two carburetors and 2 T4 turbochargers. And we put it in a rear engine car, and we took it out to B-line for the AHRA Winter Nationals, and Chris Lane was at the wheel. And the first run, the damn thing ran 6/10 under the B-Gas national record on the first run.
So all of a sudden you had everybody barking at you.
Oh my God, they called me to the tower, and Jim Tice was there, and Don Gartless was involved in running the AHRA too, and they were sitting there at the desk, and Tice told me, he says, there'll be no more of that. He says, I'm going to make a rule against you right now. And then Gartless says, well, if you're not going to let him run, I guess I'll go back to Ocala.
Awesome.
And Tice says, okay, you can run it for 1 year. So we ran it for 1 year, and then right after that, almost that same day, one of the tech guys from AHRA come down, and he gave me a business card of Pete Estes. He was head of GM Racing. He said, here, call Pete, wants to talk to you. So I called him up, and he said, who's your local Chevrolet dealer? And I said, Rick Horty at McDowell and Scottsdale Road. And he said, well, Smokey Unix got some new hand-cast slant plug cylinder heads that Smokey was building. And then pretty soon, a few weeks later, the parts department guy at Rick Horty called me up, and he says, I don't know who in the hell you are. He said, but there's a pallet full of cylinder heads marked no charge. You know, and Pete gave me a Smokey Unix number, and I talked to Smokey a lot of times, and then after the year we couldn't run anymore, so then I went over to AHRA, and we put a Rodak, a big Chevrolet solid block motor in it with turbochargers, and we took it up to Denver, and the car ran 214, and it never was an alcohol car at Denver over 200. Boy, they come the division guy poked his finger in my chest and he says, "There will be no more of that. You slow that son of a bitch down, or we'll make a rule against you." And boy, there was 3 of us guys. There was the guy at Crane Cams.
Chase Knight?
Yeah, he had one, and then there was another guy in California, and there was 3 of us guys running turbochargers at that time, and they made a rule against all of us. Then I had to go put an 871 on it, and then I ran top alcohol dragster with an 871, and that year we were in Division 5, and I had a guy from Denver driving it, and we finished number 2 in Division 5 that year. We raced from Phoenix, Pueblo, all the way up to Brainerd, Minnesota.
Some big name tracks.
Yeah.
So your passion for turbochargers, in the beginning you were the voodoo guy. You were the dark arts, and people didn't understand why you did it, and you had to be cheating somehow. And possibly in my belief is that they didn't like you because you knew that you had technology that they weren't aware
Well,
of.
it made all the guys that, like Gene Mooneyham and all them guys that were building blowers. It just meant that their stuff was antiques now. You're working with a supercharger that's running at 70% ranges versus with a blower that's 30%. There was just no different. There was no comparison. So then I quit that, and I stopped, and for a few years I got my pilot's license, and I started flying. And then a friend of mine came by, and he says, "Hey," he was racing a drag boat. He says, "Would you go out to the Firebird, the raceway, and help me with my drag race boat?" Well, that started another whole deal. Pretty soon I had a capsule boat and running.
Who was that friend of yours that brought you out there?
I can't remember his name now.
That's okay.
But anyway, he's in the Over the Hill gang deal.
Okay.
My brother's in the Over the Hill gang, and he's part of that deal. And so pretty soon I had a capsule boat, and we put turbochargers on it, and we went out and won a bunch of races. And they didn't make a rule against me.
Oh, that's the ones you beat quick. They want you to go down and make lots of.
Well, see, in Pro Mod, I mean, you're limited to running 7.0.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter if you had a nitro motor or whatever you had. The rules was that you had to have mechanical fuel injection. You couldn't have electronic. So we had to invent a fuel system, which we still run it, by the way. We use an aircraft fuel system off an aircraft. So it's like a mechanical mass airflow sensor. And some of the aircrafts, you can't run electronic ignition. It's got to be manual. And so Bendix and got together with Stromberg in World War II, and they wanted to build a fuel system that they could take off at sea level and go to 50,000 feet, and the pilot would never have to reach over and adjust the fuel mixture. It would do it by itself, and that's what we still run that thing.
All mechanically.
All mechanical, yeah.
So you got back into drag racing.
Yeah.
What brought you back to drag racing?
We had that capsule boat down in Marble Falls, Texas, running a Pro Mod class down there with that, and I had my nephew driving it, and he ran her off the end and crashed it. And I thought, this is not going to work. I said, I'm not going to be able to tell your parents and your wife that you're dead. And they'd killed a few guys doing that deal, And then, so I sent him to Frank Hawley School and got him a funny car license, and then I put together a funny car.
Tell us about the funny car.
Well, didn't have turbochargers on it. We ran the CIFCA,
Okay.
California Independent Funny Car Association, and we did. We won quite a few races with that car with a 871 blower, But then CIFCA disbanded. And then finally, Jim Maroney had this fuel altered club that he made, and so we got involved with that, and
The Western Fuel Alters.
yeah.
And
I'm still in that.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
And that car is turbocharged with the
Yes.
same mechanical World War II technology.
Same fuel system of aircraft with two 80 millimeter turbochargers.
If you were to, you stay with mechanical because basically everybody would have a fit if you were to put the type of
Well, they have ruled
electronic
against
systems they have in the Pro Mods stuff today. They would probably.
Well, see, they're still in the Western Fuel Alter deal. You still have to. You can't run electronic injection. Yeah, it's got to be manual.
Okay.
And when we first started running that with the turbochargers, there was a rule in there that said no turbochargers allowed. So you'll have to run the first year as experimental. So we did, and now they finally changed the rule up where we're legal now.
And who drives that car?
Sheldon Lufgren.
And how did you come across Sheldon?
Well, he was a crew guy when we were racing some other cars in earlier years, and then when my nephew was driving the funny car or driving the boat, and he wanted to quit and retire, and Sheldon says, "Well, I'll take it." So he'd been racing a Camaro, him and his brother, and so he started driving. He's still driving for me now.
You've had some great success with that car.
Yes.
In
In fact, we won the championship last year.
yes, you did.
Yeah.
In a experimental car.
Yeah. Well, they had 6 races, and 4 of them we were in the final, and 2 of them we won, and that clinched. We won the championship that last year.
So through the years, you've had several drivers. You remember some of the different drivers you've had that you want to talk about, or any,
Well, Steve Hogue, I remember when I finally put him in the car and I got out of the car, we started doing pretty good. And then Steve drove for me for a long time, and he's not alive anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I have Dave Greer. He drove the top alcohol dragster for me when we finished number 2 in Division 5, and he was from Denver.
So that's where it's easy to run out of 5 because that's where he was
Well,
from.
they changed this used to be Division 7. Then they changed it. This used to be Division 5. Then it changed back to Division 7 again.
Okay, so they kept moving to Arizona because there wasn't a lot of NHRA tracks here, so they just kind of threw it in with the rest of the.
Well, I know we raced at all the California tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And then in Tucson, we raced there a lot. When the track was on the other side of the road than it is now.
The old Tucson Dragway.
Yeah.
So where in Arizona, what tracks do you remember racing at?
Oh, the one up in northwest Phoenix,
Phoenix Dragway?
from
Mel Larson's?
and Tucson,
Old and new?
yeah, both of those, yeah.
What do you remember about Beeline?
I remember destroying a lot of transmissions and stuff in the front motor dragster. We were running those old LaSalle 2-speeds. It was a 3-speed, but we'd only run it in the second and high gear, and I think a lot of the earlier guys, that's what they ran.
What did you replace LaSalle with?
M&M clutch, a torque flight with the bell housing cut off.
Okay.
And back then they didn't make good torque converters. Now they got torque converters. The one that we run now, it'll handle 3,500 horsepower. And I think a lot of the Pro Mod cars now have all changed over to torque converters.
Changing technologies along the way.
Yeah.
You've done this for a long time. You're definitely a Arizona drag racing legend. What do you remember most? What's your favorite part about racing?
Winning, I guess.
That's okay. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Oh, I like the camaraderie, and I am a bug on the best trophy I have was one I got for best engineered.
It's a pride.
Yeah, that's the best trophy I got, the best engineering trophy. And I was at a race a couple of years ago, and I don't know who they were, but they come up and gave me a check for $200 and gave me a best engineered trophy. And I'm not sure exactly who it was.
But you took the trophy.
I still have it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you're still racing. Anything future plans? You're going to stay with the Alter and.
Well, this pandemic here has really hurt us. We only did 2 races this year, and then the pandemic come, and so I don't know if we're going to have any races the rest of this year until this thing is over with.
Kind of put everybody on hold for a while.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? You fish?
I spend a lot of time on my houseboat.
Okay.
In fact, as today, I'm going to go up there as soon as we get done here.
So, well, we appreciate you being here today. Arizona drag racing, you're part of the legends, and it wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't collectively all the legends there. You inspired a lot of other people. They're friendships, and you also had some rivalries, but they were all good. And you made it. You paved the way for a lot of people, and you still are. And it's nice to have you with us here today. Art Nolte, thank you very much for your time, and once again, thanks for being an Arizona drag racing legend.
I enjoy being here.
Okay.